Really? Did we
No
invoice
way.
them?
But I've been talking to them about it, so they're aware of it.
Oh, going live, just so you know.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm on top of it, guys.
Okay. Well, if I can be helpful.
Okie doke. So stream is live to YouTube.
Sometimes you got to send in the.
I'm going to share it to Facebook here.
All right.
You knew exactly what you were doing. When I've had enough, then I've had enough.
All right. We are posted to
There was this guy
X.
who came to the mock. St. Paul, he was sitting up front. He was like, I
Okay.
started listening to your podcast because I wanted to learn more about Minnesota politics. And that's why I came to the mock. And, yeah.
That's so
All right. And the stream is going live to Facebook. Okay, it's live. And as soon as you guys are ready, I will start the commercial if we're good to go. If you can stop crinkling wrappers in there.
If you put that bag on this table one more time, I will lose my
I didn't. I
mind.
was putting it down. I was just getting chocolate.
No, I've just taken it off the table 3 different times.
Okay, I'm going to start the commercial.
All right.
All right.
Open all the chocolate. Let me open all the chocolates first.
They are delicious.
Because Brian's going to blow his stack.
Between him and Gabe.
Gosh.
Hey, we're angry white men.
That tracks.
It's a really difficult time to be white, but anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that coming.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what everyone says.
Nah.
Support for Wrong
Stuff
About
just works
Everything
out.
comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch.
I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican heat, Howie Murillo.
And I am ready to talk about St. Paul, Rochelle Westland.
And we are
Wrong about everything. Woo!
Well, had one of our newest listeners, Mark
Oh, yeah.
R.
Oh, hi.
I don't know.
Mark R.
Mark R. Asked me what kind of where did like Twin Cities Sugar come from. So I got to tell a story about when we had a listener make the,
We had a listener.
we had a listener do the wrestling style promo. if you
Oh, yeah,
remember.
that's right.
And that's where he had the Twin Cities Sugar against the Puerto Rican Heat.
That is correct,
That
yes.
story's a 2-for-1.
Yes, that's true.
And Amy and Rochelle weren't there, so they got nothing.
I believe I made you a sign that said
I
pour
still-
some liberal sugar on me.
It's up on the. It is. It is. It's up on the wall of my garage.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
See.
That was
100%.
back when you were a groupie
Yeah.
of the
that-
podcast,
oh,
and now
so
you're
far.
I also have the
10
banner.
years ago.
I also have the banner from Tin Whiskers, which was our
Oh, yeah.
first
What
sponsor.
Live
year was that?
event.
2014?
14,
yeah,
Yeah,
14
years.
or 15.
yeah,
Maybe 15.
something like that.
I think
Wow.
it's 14.
We've been around a long time.
Yeah, that is a long
We're in
time.
our 11th year.
11th year. Well,
That is wild.
everybody, well,
We are like OGs at podcasting, which is crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you guys are
we should have a lot more listeners.
I was gonna say we only have slightly fewer listeners than when we started.
basically like the Joe Rogan of
Yeah.
Minnesota podcast.
Yeah. Sure.
Much smaller listenership.
Everything's relative. So I don't know.
You have more listeners, by the way. You're just not counting video views because you're old.
Yeah.
It's fashioned.
I can't believe, did he just say that?
Hurtful.
I know,
man,
that seemed rude.
God,
Old
wow.
man yells at crowd.
We need a new
Wow.
producer.
It hurts me to listen to you guys.
I know.
Our-
Just since we lost our
How about
face.
this? Before I move on with the rest of our stuff, our old producer, our original producer, Sam Sansevier, is having a baby.
No way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
They just announced it this week.
She's been really open about some of her struggles. They've had 2 miscarriages.
Oh, no.
and-
I
Yep.
didn't know
But she had some surgery needed, and she's 15 weeks along.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
she's
nice.
yep.
Oh, congratulations, Sam.
She's working at K102 now, and
Yes, and also me because I'll be a great aunt. That's my first.
Oh, that's right. Because
That's your
it's
first
because-
one.
My first one. I know you wouldn't think it because I have so
I'm
many
a great
nieces and
aunt.
nephews. I know.
you'll be a great aunt.
Yeah.
I'm a great aunt.
Because
Yeah,
I Hawthorne is her
19
nephew.
Nieces and
Yeah.
nephews,
Yeah, yeah.
and this
So,
is my
yeah, that
first
works. Yeah.
great niece or nephew.
Yeah, we've been great
do
uncles
know.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have never.
Welcome
it's
to
my
the
first.
party.
I know. I can't believe you guys are just all settled in it. It's my first one.
Yeah.
Are you gonna let them call you like Gam Gam or something?
No,
Gamby?
no,
You
because
can
then
go
I'm
by
hoping
Gamby.
Rachel will get on it, and then I can be like whatever I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm going to be.
Rachel, it's
called
okay.
for my
There's no
grandma.
pressure to you for
No
that.
pressure at all, except what I'm giving on this
You should be one.
podcast.
You should be one of these grandmas who just says, "You can call me Amy."
You-
But like when you go out,
can
just like,
call
do
me
not
Coco.
call me grandma.
Coco,
I will
Coco.
murder you, you little shit.
like, it's Coco. Like the ladies at the
There is
blowout
no,
place.
there is no way I won't have a great time with her being a grandma someday.
Yeah,
But anyway,
me too. I'm
good
so
friends.
excited.
Grandma is in the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis. With the aforementioned Gabe Noah is our producer, and we hope you're watching us on YouTube because evidently, according to Gabe, got a lot of
of
views
viewers.
there.
Really?
That's exciting.
Well,
We just didn't know how to work it.
The texties and the tweetums. I don't
know.
know how that all works.
God, YouTube comments are a cesspool. I mean, you guys should definitely comment and subscribe and all the things.
Oh, yeah,
whatever.
please do.
But like,
Be
be nice.
kind.
Be kind. Be nice. Be nice.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want to me.
Okay. Be mean to Brian.
You can't kill me. I'm already dead
Be,
inside.
be mean to Brian.
Yeah, you can do that.
Just be nice to Amy and me.
But anyway.
or just be quiet.
So
Yeah, just be quiet.
you can find us on a lot of different platforms, including wherever you get your favorite podcasts in audio form. But if you want to take a gander at us, see what we look like, see what Gam Gam looks like over here, Nana.
No, Coco.
No,
No, we're not
is
going
Coco?
with it.
No,
Coco.
Coke.
Coco. Coke.
But
is
she'll
the
have
last
she'll have
name.
another Coke. Grandma
Oh,
Coke.
I'll be
Coke.
Grandma
I
Coke.
thought you were- I think you meant
She'll
like a
have two-
Coca-Cola.
No, no.
Coco.
I'll be Grandma
Coke.
Coke.
no.
But she has two
I
Grandma
don't like that.
Cokes.
Let's workshop that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
baby has two Grandma Cokes though.
No. Why?
Step Grandma.
Oh, that's.
All right, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. this
I
right
don't
here.
think anyone.
Wow. Wow.
I was being
I hope
inclusive.
the husband isn't listening.
Oh,
knows.
oh, that was awesome. I didn't get that. I got the donkey brain all week. I'm just missing stuff because that
I'm
was
actively starting to get worried.
awesome. Yeah, maybe a little.
I was like used to switchy, and I was like, "What are you talking about? That's not." I don't know.
It's all that Ozempic weight lost.
it's Manjaro. I'm on the good stuff.
Whatever.
Ozempic is what regulars have to take.
All right. No, because you're actually diabetic.
I'm actually diabetic.
That's hilarious.
Oh my god.
Someone who I don't know is diabetic is Mike Bryant, and his firm of Bradshaw and Bryant. Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, criminal defense, or Ozempic face matter, please do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com, and I am going to murder you.
What is wrong with you? Settle
I
down.
don't know. He's so grumpy.
She was just
I was pointing it out for those people on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. It's just like The Price is Right.
She's very distracting.
It's like Holly on The Price is Right. Remember Holly?
Thank you.
Holly
Yes,
was the
Holly.
redhead. She was the redhead one.
She was the redhead.
She was the best one.
Yeah, she was.
The other two looked the same.
She was my favorite.
I don't know what's going on here.
It is a day, guys.
Plinko and whatnot. All right. Anyway, talking about something that is more solemn. In the last week, we had the 5-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder, and there were lots of things going around town and lots of kind of retrospectives on all sides of the issue. But Javier, I don't know if you want to highlight some things.
Sure, yeah. You know, it's hard to. Can you believe it's been 5 years?
I cannot believe it.
That is bananas. That is banana. Like
Because it really does seem not.
Because
like-
Amy and Rochelle, I remember you guys went out, and before all the unpleasantness happened, you guys were
We were at
marching.
First Cup Food.
the first march, the
very
first
first,
march.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because it seems like not that long ago on the one hand, but then on the other, like there does seem like this chasm of time, and in other respects, like it's so the last few weeks there have been lots of rumors that the president would pardon Derek Chauvin, which never made any sense. And worth repeating here that Derek Chauvin was convicted in Minnesota State Court. He then pled guilty in federal court. So the president, even if he pardoned him of his federal crimes, all that would mean was that Derek Chauvin would be transferred to a Minnesota state prison where he does not want to be, which is why he pled guilty.
Which is why he pled guilty.
And we don't
because
even
federal
have
prisons.
We don't even have prisons here anymore.
I know it is. We got out of the prison business because
Good gracious! No more Stillwater prison.
Because that
my
was
whole life growing up.
That was something that Jenny asked me because she was a little worried that he was going to be released and that havoc would happen. I assured her that no.
And except for Leavenworth, federal prisons are the place you'd rather be.
Yeah, they're nicer prisons, and and so they all pled for that reason, so that they could, and part of their plea deal was so that they could serve their time out in federal prison. So I don't think there's a world in which he would want a pardon.
Not a federal pardon.
But also just the fact that was even in the air, and I have to say it's been hard looking at like any social media post now about George Floyd. Like, look, any politician who mentions the five-year anniversary, there's just a rush of trolls of people just with conspiracy theories. People saying he died of a drug overdose, which is definitively proven not the case in a trial. Derek Chauvin was tried by a jury of his peers. He was found guilty because he suffocated a man. He kneeled on his back for 9 minutes, and that's why George Floyd died. But it's so intense, and there are lots, and it feels like there are more. It's hard to tell who's real and who are trolls and who are real people, but that part's just freaking depressing. But yeah, no, it was when reflecting back, right, that was the summer too where many there was a global reckoning, right? It was a global uprising. Like there were protests in Japan, like all over the world.
All over the world.
And there were all
none really more intense than here.
Like in Britain and in Europe, especially in Britain, that like Britain had similar things where like because Britain was an empire, it's a former empire with a lot of people from their former colonies now living in England. There was a similar kind of thing, reckoning in terms of like honoring imperialists, like statues came down in England, things like that, similar sort of things like that to what happened here in the States. But yeah, no, it was and all these corporations began all these DEI initiatives, which they've now pulled back because the commitment to ending racism.
Minneapolis
corporations
was in
are
turmoil.
not your friends.
We should talk about that too. Minneapolis spent 5 nights very scared. So we went to the very first protest where it was initially really a vigil, right? Yeah. And then about midway through, Rochelle, we actually said we should go now because you could start to feel like
The temperature rising. And by the way, most folks there were not raising the temperature. There was like a core group of folks that were trying to drive that conversation. So there were people that were speaking, members of the family that were speaking, and they were getting shouted over by other, like a smaller group of folks that were really trying to get things stirred up. So and also, of course, there was no police presence. So we then left, and then that was the first night, and they were actually like, let's go down to the precinct. I remember that, and they started to take a parade of people down to the precinct was kind of the plan, and that's when we were like, we got to get out of here. Well, and all of a sudden there was that car that was going through.
A car with big speakers mounted to it that was yelling and shouting and shouting over family members and community members that were trying to just to speak and remember.
Yeah. And important to remember that, like, I mean, part of what happened was very quickly, I think everyone realized the severity of it. And then there were people who came from literally all over the country. And a lot of the people who were arrested for things or like from greater Minnesota, like they were from small towns, and some people who came in to light fires and
also it was COVID and everybody had been locked down.
Yeah.
And so then you had I remember there was some dum-dums from Bloomington that had come in their hockey gear and they're just like, well, so you're from Minneapolis? They're like, well, no, we're from Bloomington, but Minneapolis is our town, and so we're here to like. And I was like, what are you doing? Yeah. This is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was.
It was and things it only calmed down on like the third night. I think it was basically
night before it got calm.
But it was when they took the case away from Hennepin County and announced that Keith Ellison would be prosecuting it, together with like that they had by then 2 nights of the National Guard, like then things finally started to calm down.
Yeah, but that was 5th or 6th night in. That was not the 3rd night. No way. This thing went. It was the 5th night before the National Guard really went in and actually did things, because they were in the 4th night, but they weren't doing anything. And then it was the 5th night that things really.
What night did it reach St. Paul? Because one of the nights you came down to my house just to make sure that you were safe.
The second
night.
Third night. The second night. The second night it did, because that was, yes, I went to your place. The 3rd night I also left, and that was, and so your neighborhood in St. Paul was not as bad, but mine was right down by University and Snelling, and so my neighborhood was every window was broken.
Rochelle's neighborhood looks like something happened recently.
That is true. But also, at the time, though, because I'm so close to the Capitol, we were being patrolled by, like, there was guard walking around.
Right, because they were
it was in the Capitol District.
But not in my area. Yeah, no.
Which was also a very odd,
Yeah, I think I live in the only like really racially diverse neighborhood.
Yeah, I think so.
Did not in some way burn, and like and there were a lot, like there was community folks who like were protecting the businesses all night and
patrolling. Yeah, you had community patrols.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, and friends in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Absolutely. No, people.
I remember AIM, American Indian Movement, was doing patrols on their businesses and neighborhoods because there was.
Yeah, because the fire trucks could not get into Minneapolis because MPD had abandoned the city, and so they'd retreated, and so they could not. The fire patrol could not come in because they needed police escorts because there was so much looting. And
that's when I found out that one of my very, very, very liberal friends in Minneapolis owned really big guns, because he was on his own porch with his own guns protecting his own house.
Yep,
And it was scary. And now we like to argue about it. We like to yell back and forth. But remember, it's not always about the person. Sometimes it is about the person. Sometimes it's about what the person symbolizes. And kind of as a country, how do we react to it? And this is not over with. We're not saying it's the 5-year anniversary because it's over. It's not over, and we're still talking about what's going to happen with George Floyd Square and things on Lake Street. So they're still, as much as things have healed, they are not healed yet. Let's talk about the big, beautiful bill.
Oh, good Lord.
So the House has passed their budget bill. U.S. House, sorry. And so this has been a bill with much conversation, a lot of consternation. Obviously, there are cuts within this bill, and there's been a lot of there's been a lot of rumors, there's been a lot of facts, but there's just been a lot of things flowing. Now we know what the bill looks like. And I think it's interesting because, I heard over and over that there would be no cuts to direct services like Medicare and Medicaid going to folks like American citizens. There's definitely cuts in this area. Are they, and Rochelle, maybe you can help me too, are they cuts? Are they cuts to direct payment and they're doing more block grants? Because that also happens where where sometimes the direct payments are cut out in favor of direct block grants to states, or how is this coming down?
Well, and I guess I haven't dug into it to know all of the details of that, but I think that
You have that in common with many of the members of
I
Congress.
know, right? So, but I know there's a number of, proposals and things that have been switched, and a lot of it is just how to provide blocks for people to be able to access care. And that's, through work requirements, that's through regular updates for enrollees to make sure that their addresses are correct. These are a lot of transient populations that move a lot, which makes it really hard for them to stay or stay eligible. And then I think that the other big piece is that work requirements piece. And I know that we like to talk about work requirements as something, if you're able-bodied, that you should be, out working. But when you're talking about people that are on Medicaid, I pulled up some of the numbers. There's 54% of people are of working age, but when you break that down, only 6% of that population are people who are able to work and are not able to. 3% of the total receiving Medicaid benefits. So it's a really small number that you're focusing on, but it really causes a significant amount of churn for everybody else on that program. So I think that it can do a lot of damage to a lot of people just in their ability to access the program, even when they're able to.
This is modeled after failed experiments that have already happened in Arkansas and Georgia at adding work requirements. I think that the thing for people to understand, these are not work requirements. They could not politically say we're going to cut this many millions of people off of Medicaid. They couldn't politically do that because then they'd be admitting to what they're actually doing, which is that.
They're block granting and cutting, sending it down to the states to solve.
No, but the work requirements are designed to cut people off. So rather than calling it, we're cutting people off, we're putting in work requirements that like as Rochelle said, a lot of it's a tiny proportion of people who are actually who would meet the criteria, but also just making it difficult for people just like because they moved or for whatever reason, just like has the impact of getting a lot of people off of health care. So it's going to have millions of people are going to lose their health care.
It also has, it's fulfilled the president's no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And he had originally said no taxes on Social Security benefits,
That
not
did
going to
not
get that, but I think they get like
but
$4
it makes
grand
the tax cuts from his first term permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing too is that from what I've been hearing, and I don't know, certainly don't have my thumb on the pulse of the Senate, but I think that what the bill looks like right now is not what the bill is going to look like when it comes back from the Senate. So for everyone who loves this, hold on. For everybody who hates this, hold on, and let's let the process work. Though the big beautiful bill part, and this is the small d Democrat in me, I fucking hate when they put these big huge omnibus bills together. It's not the way it should work. It's not transparent. It's not a good way for the elected representatives to be able to truly represent their districts. So I don't like it. Republicans said that we're not going to do it, and then we went and did it.
which is just what happens every time, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this, sort of the degrading of transparency and democracy as bills pass. No one knows what's in them, at least certainly not the public, and oftentimes not the folks voting on those bills.
So wait and see. So another thing was SCOTUS had a 4-4 tie that's kind of preserving a ban on religious charter school funding. One of the justices, Amy Coney Barrett, had a connection to Notre Dame Law School, which was, I think, representing one of the parties in it. So she had to recuse herself. So it was a 4-4 tie. So it's a temporary victory for people who want to separate church and state in that way. There are other cases, certainly in the pipeline, that Justice Barrett would not have to recuse herself from. There's no guarantee that they will be brought up because the Supreme Court doesn't have to do anything they don't want to do unless they have the rule of 4. But But I would suspect this is not the last time that we hear anything about whether we should have religious charter schools. And there's a Minnesota connection because I think Ember Reichgott Young was one of the people that was working on this case. So
Well, it makes sense. So Ember Reichgott Young, a Democrat, former senator, was the author of the original charter school legislation here in Minnesota, which, by the way, we were the first state to authorize charter schools in the country. So she led the way. It would make sense that she would be
connected.
some connection brought in maybe as an expert on the issue. So there we go.
lastly, in our national coverage, and this is scary. This is very scary. So, two people who were engaged to be engaged were leaving an event in D.C. They were staffers at the Israeli embassy. Were shot by a gentleman who killed them both, and this was 100%. He is unabashedly. This is a politically motivated murder, and it was even though he was of Hispanic descent from Chicago, of all places. He did this, as specifically targeting these two people because they were Jewish. One of them was Christian. He was not religiously Jewish, but this is something where when you couple it with everything, look at everything about just the devolving of society. This YouTube, Twitter, make me famous bullshit that's going on, where people like Mangione and other people just think that their ticket to stardom is to create a high profile murder. After this guy killed the people, said free Palestine, then he went into the event to make sure that everybody knew that he had done it. Ugh. And so this is probably going to end up being his name was Elias Rodriguez. And this is something that it has gotten news. People have paid attention to it. The right people have said the right things condemning this. I don't think it's being made, this execution of these two innocent people, I don't think it's been made a big enough deal. And so I just wanted to take my part to say, well, we have seen evidence of this on the right and on the left. And this is something that needs to be condemned by society, and not make these people who are murderers, straight up murderers, not make them celebrities just because
or
they're
somehow heroes
because they're
politically
killing
aligned.
somebody who has a different opinion or political view than you, and it makes me sick. Makes me sick to my stomach.
Agreed.
All right.
All right.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Is that all the national news? Jeez.
Wow.
It's depressing.
Yeah,
I know. It really is sad.
Because Rochelle was going to be on, we want to make sure to get some
Yep.
St.
really
Paul.
sad.
St. Paul's Karen.
St. Paul's Karen.
Would you want to introduce this one? There was a raid.
There was a raid in St. Paul where a nonprofit Feeding Our Futures was raided. As many of you, I'm guessing, remember, this was the nonprofit that misused funds that was supposed to be feeding children, and that is not where that funding went. And then I believe that another person was arrested at the airport trying to.
How did this
flee.
still exist? How did this still exist?
I think it's that pervasive that they just haven't rooted all of it out yet.
Oh my gosh.
Was this feds who did the arrest? Yeah.
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 Yep. I mean, feds, how did it still exist?
I don't know.
I mean, I know that the feds have been part of it is tracking money, tracking where money went and things like that.
Yes, which is difficult because a lot of it went overseas.
Yeah,
so that's
right. But yeah, no, clearly it was a sprawling investigation. Was this announced by what's his name? Our U.S. attorney. Well, who is the U.S. attorney now?
It's not Lugar. Is it still? It's not Lugar.
No, because
it's a
somebody
female.
changed.
I don't remember what it was, but at the Capitol, and we're still, probably one of the things I should have put on here is that we're still not done with our budget. In fact, we will talk about that next. How about that? But because because we're not done with our legislative session yet, the fraud talk is still a major topic of discussion at the Capitol. And once again, I think people are taking it seriously. I don't think they're taking it seriously enough, because I don't know that we're doing quite enough to root this out, because no matter what your opinions are, politically, racially, ethnically, whatever, this is money that was supposed to go to feed children that did not feed children. It enriched individuals, and even if it wasn't going to go to feeding kids, it could have been used for something else. Instead, it was stolen, it was misappropriated, it was used to buy lavish homes and cars and all these different things that they can track down. And so many of the people who claimed their innocence, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty, are now trying to flee the country. Because that's what innocent people do. They try to flee the country. But good luck getting through TSA, because that's one of the things we do right.
Well, and I think it's interesting because this was like a separate foundation.
Yeah.
Like it was a shell game of.
But it was attached.
Yes,
So it was a
yes.
food outlet
Yes.
that was being paid by Feeding Our Future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, and their original job was not that. It was like supposedly like tech work with kids or something equally. I mean, I don't know. I don't
And at the Capitol, because right now we're still trying to put together the 2-year biennial budget for the state of Minnesota, and we are cutting very, very, very
Yes.
important projects. We have an upcoming $6 billion deficit, so we are cutting things at the Capitol, and meanwhile, hundreds of millions of dollars
going out in fraud.
went out in fraud. And it's not just Feeding Our Future. They found it in autism centers and in child care centers and
Homeless
programs. So these are hundreds of millions of dollars that could be going to legitimately help people, and it is being pissed away. And I think the public needs to be a lot more angry about this.
That's right.
And this is not something that has to be red versus blue. This is something that everybody should be angry about.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
It's a waste and it's fraud, and also it hurts the people that need it most.
And the people that are doing the work.
That's right.
Like the people that are doing good work,
Oh,
the
yes,
nonprofits
and
that
also-
are about, like they get caught up in this too when they're providing needed services to their communities.
Because then they're all looked at.
They're all looked at
right?
as suspect. Yep.
Yep. Ugh.
So, Amy, what are your thoughts, Amy and Rochelle? What are you hearing, kind of like Capitol, gossip talk about the budget? We keep hearing. I was on television with Governor Walz on Friday, and he thought we would have everything kind of wrapped up by Tuesday, and that did not happen. There is a 7 p.m. today. We tape this on Wednesday, the 28th. There's a 7 p.m. deadline today where bills were supposedly supposed to be done by 7. There's no way that that's going to happen. The leaders are meeting later today at 7:30 or something like that, and the governor said that he thought we would have everything wrapped up by 10 p.m. There ain't no way. So why do they keep, just answer this one question. Why do they keep setting artificial deadlines that they cannot meet?
I don't think it makes any sense.
Who benefits from that?
Nobody benefits from that because it doesn't put the fire out. Here's the problem. The issues are not even about money on this, right? There are some big capital P policy issues that are at discussion. The money is largely a side portion of this discussion. There are some big issues that have to be decided that leaders are going to have to bring their caucus members to the table on some kind of a compromise. And you don't get to do that you can't just set a deadline and then expect them to solve it by that. That's not what's going to happen. The leadership is going to have to step up, have some talks, make some decisions, and then go back to their caucus and sell it. And they can't make agreements, and they can't say they have agreement until they've gone back to their caucus and get the votes. This is something that it's harder even for governors to understand, because the governor gets to decide on something, and he can sign it or veto it. He gets to decide as one person. As a caucus leader, you need to deliver the votes, and that is it's a more difficult job. You have members all over the map when it comes to feelings about what's going on in these bills. And so setting a false deadline, it doesn't do a darn thing. What you got to do is go back and do the hard work within your caucus to find the votes for what can be done. And sometimes, too, it just takes time. Sometimes with these big issues that people care very deeply about, sometimes the time that marches on and the pressure that wears down, where people finally go, okay, well, I made a good fight, but at some point government's going to shut down, because that's, by the way, what will happen if by June 30th there's not a deal cut. It has not happened since 2011, and it went. We went into 21 days into July before that shutdown was revealed, or was fixed.
Is that the Amy Koch
The
shutdown?
Dayton
That is the Amy
shutdown.
Koch
That is the Dayton shutdown of 2011. But look, that was the last time we had a deficit, and it's not a surprise. It's so interesting. We've had surpluses since then. The very next year, after we did not raise taxes, we had over $1 billion in surplus. You're welcome, Minnesota, and you've not had a deficit since. But a deficit just is really hard. And not most of these legislators, by the way, that are serving, very few of them are still around from the last time we had a deficit. And so it's hard for them to wrap their head around, you don't have any money.
And where Amy's right is that.
But you said it's not money that they're.
Yeah.
That they're
Well,
it's the money. And we talked about this last week. Leadership, Republicans and Democrats in the House, split leadership. You have one vote majority Democrat in the Senate. They came to an agreement on the money as far as like how much will be spent where. The landmine was how they got to those numbers, because it included, and like I said, we talked about this last week, but how they got to it was by telling adult undocumented people that they're at the end of the year they're no longer going to be eligible for Minnesota Care. That saves. In the short term, I don't disagree with you on that, Javier, but it for budget purposes, it saves money. But the leadership agreed to that on May 15th without having buy-in from their caucuses, which means that there wasn't really a deal. So we have this vague framework, but every time I or the media or anybody talks about this to some of the leaders, they can't give a great answer on what is either going to be substituted for the undocumented adult health care, or how are you going to get the votes for that?
Right.
And that tells me we're not going to be done at last Tuesday. We're not going to be done today at 7. We're not going to be done today at 10 until that is something where members of the legislature on the DFL side say either what their alternative proposal is to what their leadership agreed on, or who is going to vote for this.
Yeah, I think it's also just there hasn't been a need to compromise for several years now in the legislature, and that pressure that is applied by a deficit adds to these, right? Because money can fix even policy issues, or you have more to trade. There's not much to trade or negotiate on this. And so you really have to, so it's like that skill has just sort of rusted over the last few years at the legislature. I mean, for a good thing, right? They've not had a deficit. That's a good thing. We've not had a deficit for over a decade. But the skill of it is kind of gone. And then the other thing is there is no public input in these bills,
None.
which is ridiculous. And the press, I get it. Nobody cares. They should care, folks. You really should care. It's not that that you can't even know what's going on. They're not meeting in public. They're not taking public input. It is a terrible, terrible way to make a bill. And I would also argue harder to get support. When you don't have public input on anything, you're trying to solve things behind the scenes. If you have it done publicly, then people can hear it and vet it and have their disagreements in public in the light of day. It will always be better, and it will help you reach a better agreement.
We have elected officials asking us, what are you guys hearing? And that should never happen.
And there are sensitive issues. Hortman said, well, there's sensitive issues you can't do in public. For sure. There's definitely conversations, but not all of them. Right. And that is what's happening. All of them, except for the rare instance of taxes and jobs committee. Everybody else has done these massive omnibus budget bills, wrapped up, done, put in front of folks with no public input at all.
And no input from the Republican minority in the Senate.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
They're not
included.
They're going to need Republican votes to pass some of these bills, and they are not engaging them at all. So why the hell would the Republicans support any of this stuff? I don't understand the logic of it. Amy was a leader. I was leadership staff in the House. I've had to put together a lot of these things. Amy's had to put together a lot of these things. You guys have been involved I'm sure, somewhere along the line. I don't know. But
I would like a health bill.
yeah, but
Please.
but this
Anyone
is just
listening?
not how you do it. This is not. They're not setting themselves up for success
Right,
with
that's-
their own people. It's one thing if Democrats piss off Republicans, Republicans piss off Democrats. You're kind of supposed to do that. But like in the tax bill, which is a disaster, though it is one of the only bills that is actually being discussed in public. Kudos to the chairs there. But in that, the House Democrat chair and the Senate Democrat chair are yelling at each other and storming off and making public admonishments of the other. And when I saw Governor Walz on Friday, I brought that up, and the facade of someone running for office came down, and you saw the face of a man who was sick of a lot of people's BS, and he acknowledged that he's aware of how poorly taxes is going. And earlier today, in one of his press things, he said that they're pretty close to calling it an impasse. But there aren't problems.
Who said it? Who said they're close to calling it an impasse?
Governor Walz did on taxes.
That's not a thing.
Then what do you do?
Well, then
that's
you
not-
well, but then
Well, you
what
don't
they do,
need a tax bill. as
well,
part of
and
the
you
budget,
don't need a tax bill. But two, a lot of times, and this happened even back in my day, if the chairs of these conference committees or conference committees equivalent, which is what this is, the working groups, if they cannot get a deal, then it gets kicked up to leadership, and leadership will decide what's in the transportation bill, what's in the tax bill, what's in the K-12 bill.
But they still have to take it back to their caucus.
And they still have to get the votes.
Get the votes.
And that's the hardest part. I mean, I didn't know on our budget deal in 2011 after the shutdown and all of that. I still had we cut a deal, and I still had to work the caucus and get folks to the point where they were going to vote for those bills. No, and nobody wanted to vote for those bills, right? They were cuts. Those bills stunk, whether you liked it or not. Like that was big spending cuts. But at some point, you just have to govern.
And if you look at the big beautiful bill, and we criticized it because you shouldn't have these huge omnibus bills. The reason why you have big omnibus bills is because nobody wants to vote for the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They all want to vote for the good stuff. So if you if you have bills that are just traveling on their own, yes, you'll be able to get votes for the bills that feed kids and build roads and all the stuff that people like. But when you have to cut stuff, no one's going to want to do that. So you put the good bills in with the tough bills, and then people have to vote for them, arguably. And that's why you have omnibus bills. But in a perfect world, this is not something we would do.
I was just thinking, do you remember at the beginning of this when Brian was like, I don't want to talk very much? He just got on that soapbox right there about omnibus bills.
Legislative process.
I know. Well, hey, I missed the old days when you had, conference committee and you had to go and you had to show up and you had to wait with everybody and
Days,
figure it out
nights.
all
And you would-
night.
and
and have the offers go back and forth.
First time I worked on any bill, it was up like a whole week, every night,
Yep.
like on the elections
Doesn't
bill,
happen.
and just watch them trade back, and they'd caucus, they'd separate, and then they'd come back and be like, "We'll take this part if you take this," and this, and it was negotiation. It was like something that I recognized from union negotiations.
No, literally.
None of that. You're checking to see if you're still in it and calling your
I
people.
don't understand. I don't understand why legislators who are not in leadership don't rebel against this.
They totally should. So a couple things. One, I think that they have largely gotten a little bit used to it. COVID put everything behind closed doors, right? They didn't have to negotiate public because any meeting they had was on Zoom and everything got done. So for 2020, 2021, everything was sort of just behind closed doors. Then you get to 22, 23, and 22, they sort of open up, right? But by now, you've got a lot of newly electeds that have never experienced a real conference committee or in any kind of way. And then 2023, the trifecta. Well, the Democrats didn't want their dirty laundry aired in front of people, right? They didn't want to have disagreements, so it was just easier to kind of keep it back and have it sort of internal. And it is now we're 2025. We're 5 years down the road, and I bet we should do the count. I bet half the legislatures never experienced real conference committees, maybe more. maybe more than half.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And so at Summit is just like,
because I started 25 years ago, where the work of the people was done in conference committee. You had testifiers, you had
Yeah.
offers back and forth, you had people kind of arguing their positions, and that morphed into that conference committee was just where they exchanged offers, and then they went into their private
Right.
rooms and discussed them. And now we don't even get the
No.
offers back and forth in public. And if all of the leaders were standing right in front of me, I would say this right in front of them. It is a dereliction of their
It is.
duty to the people of Minnesota to do it. And I'm not saying that as a lobbyist. I have all their cell numbers. I can text them and email them, and they'll pick up and talk to me. But for regular people who care about this stuff, they have no access to this information, and they'll just find out when it's all done, instead of being able to actually influence, their elected officials on their own behalf.
And also what matters is to understand what a conference committee report is. So this is, you take a bill from the House, you take a bill from the Senate, you go into a committee, and you work out the differences. But a conference committee report itself is not amendable on the floor. It's an up or down vote. So if the rank and file members do not get input in a conference committee in any real kind of way,
Right.
they have no input. That's it. That's done. Once that conference committee report is signed and dropped on the floor, they cannot amend it in any way.
So, Ro, your area of expertise is health and human services, but much more health.
Yes. Well, no.
Now, yes. So, I mean, talk a little bit. I mean, because what happened with the health bill this year, mostly on the House side, is kind of doubles down on poor process.
Well, I mean, I think
Without
it really
getting
is
personal on anyone.
Nothing is personal. I think that it just really was that because there was the divide, right? There is a significant lack of agreement, and the space where there are questions about what you're going to do with Minnesota Care sits in that health budget. And there wasn't able to there wasn't an agreement. There wasn't a bill that came out in the normal session. There were just vehicle bills, which were, basically blank bills that came out in the House. And there's still negotiations. There's a conference committee that is moving forward right now, or not a conference committee, now a working group. Yep. That is,
have
still.
we seen them in public at all?
I
Have they
have-
had
no.
any meeting? No.
No.
Not a single public meeting
No.
on this.
I mean, I know that they're working.
And what percentage of the state budget is HHS?
Like 52%. It's a large number part of the budget.
Them and K-12 are the two
Yeah.
largest.
I mean, and it's hard because you have the two sections. We have the health budget and the human services
Yeah.
budget, but you mix those two together, and if you have early childhood in there, you're looking at a big number. But yeah, and it is hard because you don't know what's in the bill, you don't know what's being cut, aren't part of those conversations, and so really, it's that you better hope you did your work early because it's a lot harder to influence it towards the end.
Well, I don't want to talk this week, so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's jump to
for
plug.
that.
Let's jump to plugs. Let's go first.
I am hosting The Moth tonight at the Parkview Theater. I'm super excited because there's a labor conference in town, and a bunch of folks in labor are going to be there tonight. So I'm really excited. There are a handful of tickets available at the door, but you have to get there really early, in 1 hour, if you're listening live.
Whoa.
And I've only been to one of these, and I had such a good time.
Moth is so much
It
fun.
was a lot of fun. It was at the Parkway. I haven't been to it at Amsterdam. But the other thing too is, if you want to see what a Happy Javier looks like, Happy Javier is who hosts the Moth, because the person that I saw up there was just a beaming happy person instead of the Puerto Rican sourpuss over here that we get on this show.
Oh, he's delightful.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Yeah. Just be careful.
And what's the theme tonight? I love the theme.
Drama.
I know. Yeah. I know.
like a telenovela
I know nothing about
on
that.
stage.
Exactly.
Alondra.
Yeah. Super excited. And also, long-time listeners will remember there was a time at this point in the show, and I'm going to return to start doing this.
Let's do it, because guess
where
what?
point out,
They're not responding.
yeah, we'll see Minnesotans. Here's the thing. For a long time, the only way, or the way, first it was the way that I got people to contribute to our Patreon was to browbeat you, insult you a little bit, tell you
Embarrass?
tell you you're freeloading a little bit, like, because if you can afford it and you're not giving, you're kind of being a dick. That was the line I always used, and it worked for a while. And then occasionally people, like, I wouldn't do it, and then they drop off and be like, oh, see, like, why do you make me treat you like this?
They like it.
And so now
I
it's
think
been a
Minnesotans
while,
like it.
and guess what, people? I have to freaking do it again. So listen, I met a guy. In fact, I met a guy recently who said who told me they're like, between jobs and all, like, obviously does not apply. If you cannot afford it, does not apply to you. However, if you are listening to this, say for example, if I don't know, you're a legislator, like a lobbyist, because we have a lot of lobbyists who listen to this program. I know that because y'all talk to me about it, and I know that you make a lot of money too, because you're lobbyists.
Makes sense.
Not all of us.
Oh, please. Whatever. Cry me a river.
Enough
all of
to
you,
give.
all of you.
Enough
to throw $5 our way. Come on. You're not helping people.
You know how expensive Manjaro is?
Really expensive, I think.
I mean, not
$1,000 a month.
Not
I don't
if,
even.
not if you have diabetes, but like for the rest of you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
But anyway, so if you can afford it and you're listening and you're not giving, you're kind of being a dick. So
We're on our 11th year.
yes, we're on our 11th year. Come on, we're almost
We don't take
tweens.
any money from this.
Are we
This
tweens
is not
yet?
for us.
Are
We are.
Are we
We
tweens?
are.
We are tweens.
You are.
We are tweens. Yeah, no. See,
This is not for us.
You're on.
It
We
goes
are.
to our
We are.
expenses.
Yes, it goes to our the producer I was complaining about earlier.
He's not our problem.
No, he's not our problem. But
We're
I forget why he was being a dick earlier, but I was mad at him for something. Yeah, he's not even paying attention now.
No.
Literally, like he's not paying attention.
I am too.
He just put that new little picture, so he's busy. He's busy
Deep down, Javier hates Gabe.
No.
You just turn up some drama.
He's the most depressed man who's ever worn a peacock jacket.
Keeping the sexual tension alive. Anyway,
Oh, it is.
if you can afford it and you're not giving, you're kind of being a dick. So just, if you're watching on the YouTubes, go to www.patreon.com/wrongabouteverythingpodcast. All of you, go do it. If I don't see any next week, I'm going to be really freaking pissed. And it's going to get meaner.
Oh, no.
It's going to get meaner.
Yeah.
Nice.
More plugs?
Quick.
I don't have any plugs.
Parkway Javier.
You can catch Brian and I on the BS podcast every Tuesday. Bob Sansevier, new almost grandpa to be for my great grand niece or nephew, or my grand niece and nephew. Also every Friday, and I guess this will go on until special session is called or over. You can catch me on WCCO 830 at 8:20 on Fridays. It is the Capital Clash. Really excited to do that. And I think that's, that's it.
Let's go to Spanks and Thanks. Who wants to go first?
I can go. So my thank is to am I not being able to open this? To Republican Congressman Mike Flood from Nebraska. He had a town hall where he was asked about provision in the GOP's like massive bill, the one we just talked about, that would restrict the judiciary's ability to hold government officials in contempt. Flood said he did not agree with the provision before admitting that quote, the provision was unknown to me when I voted for that. He was booed, practically booed out of his own evening there. Thanking him because just the admitting that what's going on right now is people either don't know or are acting like they don't know, and they have pieced together this Frankenstein monster of horrible things that is going to negatively impact many people, including like literally millions of people in red states. So, but appreciate the dude's honesty, saying I voted for something I hadn't read, didn't know anything about. So, and my spank is for you remember when Gretchen Whitmer went to the White House to and had that crazy picture with her face covered, and she was roped into being part of a press conference, and then later she greeted him at the airport and all this. You know what she's getting in return? The Trump administration is currently considering after calling them victims, they are considering granting pardons to the men who were convicted of trying to kidnap and murder her. That's the thanks you get, Gretchen. That's my spank, because they are handing out pardons to criminals left. It is bananas. They are like they've stopped prosecuting federal public corruption, and he's like pardoning people left and right, and now they're looking to pardon the guys who were going to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
All right. Do you want me to go? All right. I
Sure,
can go.
go ahead.
Yep. All right. So my thank is for President Trump, but he's a little late to the game. The Russians have gone on at least three consecutive nights now of bombing the Ukraine. I think it's should not be a surprise to anyone, but apparently it is a surprise to President Trump, who finally came out on social media to say that Putin has gone absolutely crazy. So I guess thanks for getting to the game. We've been talking about this on the podcast for a very long time.
We already took it back.
Putin has
He already took it
never
back today.
he's never been okay.
Yeah, he already
is absolutely
downplayed
crazy.
the idea that they're
Of
doing
course,
anything about
because he was caught by surprise. You're right, Mr. President, but he's not that he's going crazy now. This was his plan all along. He is not to be trusted, and we should never be trusting him or working with him. That is not the kind of person he is. He's former KGB, and he is a bad dictatorial a-hole, and that's where he should be relegated.
Say it in
thanks for the
say
moment.
it in Russian.
No. My spank is for the city of Brooklyn Park. The city of Brooklyn Park had their public works director, who was, by the way, in Florida at the time at a conference. I'm sorry, it was Georgia, an Atlanta hotel.
Yep.
In late September of 2024. So this was, now what are we on? 8 months ago. I want to make sure to get his name right. Daniel Ruiz was facing charges in Atlanta for rape, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, and battery. His arraignment has been set for June 3rd. So this is 8 months ago. The woman tried to escape. He wrestled her back down and held her captive while he continued to torture and rape her. So taxpayers in Brooklyn Park, but all across the state should be furious at this. Not only was this a taxpayer-funded trip of around $7,000 to $8,000, city of Brooklyn Park, but this person was continued as he was on leave to be on the city's payroll and will continue to be on the city's payroll through the month of June. Even after all of this goes down, he will continue to be paid by the taxpayers of Brooklyn Park. This terrible, horrible animal of a person has been being paid by the city of Brooklyn Park now for 8-9 months and will continue to be paid out even while not, and by the way, not working this entire time. So that is my big spank. City of Brooklyn Park, what were you doing? What were you thinking? The city council should be very ashamed of what they did, and the city of Brooklyn Park residents should be very angry.
Man, you guys are so uplifting today.
Sorry.
I don't even know what to. I don't even know. Okay.
Okay. Give it.
So we know I can't come on this podcast without spanking St. Paul. And there's two things in St. Paul right now that are making me angry because we know that's how
Just
I roll.
two?
Well, right now it's two. And then I do have a thing. But so first of all, the Alliance Bank building was broken into and vandalized. So this is one of the, I believe it's Madison properties that were basically making up almost like a third of the downtown that are now condemned,
just
broken
horrible.
down, sitting empty.
There's a
vacant
terrible story
buildings.
about that management.
Yep,
company.
and there's so to the point where there's 3 blocks in St. Paul that I feel is vacant, and that is just a problem for me. We're not monitoring it. If you're just going to let it sit open, it still should be, looked after, because at some point, guys, we're going to have to figure out how to rebuild this downtown. And the second thing is, I don't know if you guys talked about it last week, but it was the St. Paul sinkhole. Did you guys talk about this?
No, you go ahead.
I've seen it.
There's a sinkhole in St. Paul right outside of Tom Reed's. It's 30 feet deep. And this is my favorite part of it, you guys, is guess how long it's going to take, they're estimating, to fix
2
the
months?
seatbelt.
2 weeks.
5 months. Damn. You guys, that's going to be like
Where
almost
is there
snow
a
season.
sinkhole?
Right on West 7th, right by Tom Reed's.
You can't miss it. The whole half the street.
It's half the street is blocked off. And I'm just like, at that point, it's just going to snow in that sinkhole, and we're going to be like, well, now we don't have to plow it. Like, it's going to be.
That is how they fill in their
Guys,
potholes in St. Paul.
it is.
Where is
They
the
just let the
sinkhole?
snow sit.
On West 7th Street, right across from Tom Reed. So, like, by the Downtowner.
If you know where the Parlor Bar is,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit up from Parlor
Yeah.
Bar.
In the middle and on
Just in
West
the middle
7th?
of the street on West 7th. It's one ways now.
It's allegorical.
It's not great.
I know. What are we doing, you guys? So, City of St. Paul.
There's a bar there that some of us go to, and we've renamed it the Sinkhole Lounge
Which one?
Parlor.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, we were there the other day too.
Do we have a council member?
Mine does not list.
Is there any left? Or what are you doing?
I mean,
What are
I
you
technically do. You technically do.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know, we're
Maybe you could call
Who
him.
represents that area? Her.
yeah. She does represent that area. Get it together. Oh, and then my thing is, I mean, I know we kind of ragged on the fact that conference committees weren't meeting right now, but I do want to make sure that we thank the hardworking staff of the committees and the revisor's office, the Senate counsel's office that is working really hard, the departments that are pulling these bills together. Because please, guys, get these bills out so that we can do summer.
Pitter patter. Let's get at her. Okay, so I have a couple of spanks. My first one is going to be, I guess, to People Magazine. A gentleman named Alec Campbell, who's a 38-year-old Pennsylvania park ranger, was found dead on May 25th, 2 days after he went missing. He was in a kayak, it capsized in Tyler State Park, and he drowned. He had a wife, 2 sons, and there actually is a GoFundMe page if you want to find it. The reason why I'm spanking People Magazine is that they took a quote from one of his drinking buddies, I'm guessing, because his buddy said that Mr. Campbell, who is dead, by the way, who has a widow and 2 children, he said that his friend would be bummed that the park was closed this weekend. And that's the headline. Missing park ranger found dead, would be bummed that the park was closed this weekend. So obviously they put it up there because they thought this guy said something dumb and funny and that whatever, but this isn't dumb and funny. A guy is dead. Kids don't have a dad. So don't be flippant about it. And then my second one, and this is a little bit of kind of following with what I was saying about the Israeli Jewish people murdered, is that a 28-year-old American citizen was arrested at was it JFK? At John F. Kennedy Airport in New York after an attempt to firebomb a branch office of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. This man, his name is Joseph Neumeyer. He's an American and German citizen, and he was detained after a hostile confrontation with a security guard. They failed to detain him. He ditched his backpack. He broke free, made it all the way back here before actually getting arrested. But this is another thing where, these things have been going on our whole lives. But I think now, in the YouTube reality TV age, this is something that people are finding a lot more attractive way to get the attention that they deserve, and we need to, as a society, condemn it with our whole hearts and minds. And with that, I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
And I'm almost new great aunt and future Coco, Amy Koch.
And I'm
gonna
hoping
make it a thing.
No.
Democratic strategist in the Puerto Rican heat, and that is not going to be a thing, Javier Murillo.
And I'm hoping after this podcast you'll find a little sunshine. Rochelle Westland.
And we are
Wrong
About everything.
Amy's name.
No, it's a good one.